Let me just do our little intro here. So we continue to work on our joint presentations that we've had for December 9th, and the students are doing most of the teaching today, and I am just doing an excellent job. And we are finishing up the appendicular skeleton, which are the limbs primarily, and how they attach to the torso, which is the axial skeleton. And we've got our hands and feet to go. So I saw Geraldine stick a foot picture up. So I don't know if she was that a rehearsal, Geraldine?
Yeah, yeah, I think it was. So you live and you learn, right? So
Absolutely.
I've taken a few art classes in my life because my freshman year I thought I was going to be a graphic designer. So I've taken a few art classes, including most of my high school. That was my passion. But I've learned using Play-Doh to try and make a foot is not the best idea. And I'm going to put this up and then you guys can all laugh.
All right, let's put it over where we can see it, Lovey.
It did look beautiful at one point in time, but as the Play-Doh dries, it's not so pretty anymore. So I don't know if you can kind of see it. I tried sewing it together with thread, and the Play-Doh was so heavy that collapsed. So then I started using this like jewelry. Oh, it's just getting worse and worse.
Well, it looks like an octopus.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. At some point in time, it was pretty. I had it all almost pretty yesterday, and then.
Well, that must be very frustrating to you, but it's always nice to have a little bit of sense of humor in the whole thing.
Right, yeah. So I was proud of myself yesterday because I made all the parts and I had them saran wrap to keep them nice.
Yay, yeah, okay.
And as I had it set up, it was really nice. But so I took a bunch of screenshots of different instructional videos, kind of to show a little bit better than my.
Bring it up. There it is. There they are. Well, now this is interesting. Using a screen to look at a screen.
Right. Right. So I've come to this conclusion that maybe this will work better. So those are the cuneiform bones. They're at the very top that connect.
Okay, a little bit higher. There they are. Yes. Okay, good.
So there's 3 of those. Oh boy, here's another photo of it. And I think I needed to have a little bit more time to figure out how to make all these joints. There's what did it say? The foot has 26 bones, but it has even. What did it say? And so there's a lot of joints there, and so
yes, there are.
So I had it all color coded here. So I had, the upper foot ones, and then I had the tarsals, the metatarsals, and the phalanges here. I had them all color coded. So if it would have all stuck together, it would have been beautiful.
Yeah,
so,
hold that back up again, dear. Or one like that.
Here's another one.
Okay, now.
This is the middle toe because it actually has the toe. The big toe has the hallux. It doesn't have the actual end.
3 parts of a phalange, right? It just has 2.
Right.
And that's a tarsal.
Tarsals, metatarsals. Yeah. So
the shape on the bones there pretty good.
Yeah, I spent a lot of time making them look, like they did in the diagram, but now it's just one big mess. So both boys wanted to play with it, and I tried to keep them away from it, but it didn't work. So
where's your cuneiforms?
Next one. The 3 cuneiform bones, they were all like the medial, the intermediate, and the lateral. I believe they were these three here.
Yes, that's right. And you even got a styloid, does Luke, is that the styloid? No, it's not. What is that called on the foot?
The three cuneiform bones are the very top of the arch of the foot. They connect the first, second, and third toes to the metatarsals. They're the medial, intermediate, and lateral. I've got some crazy notes here too, but the calcaneus and the talus ended up in one big ball like this. So, but they were,
That's interesting.
they were, let me get back to my, but they did look like that at one point in time, the calcaneus and the talus. Can you see that one?
Yes. So there's the foot is one of those things where there's a gradual transition from the ankle to the foot. It's hard to decide where's the ankle end and where does the foot begin. Would you say, Luke, would you say the navicular is like the transition point between the ankle and the actual foot proper?
Yes, that's where you'll even hear the condition where people have a really bad arch of the foot issue. One diagnosis can be that navicular bone is too loose, and ends up being called a navicular drop, and that's where the arch of your foot collapses. So I still have my model right here.
Let Geraldine put her stuff down, and then Luke will have you come back up.
Yeah.
All right, Geraldine, you got to talk because I got you.
The navicular there, it's funny that you bring that up because me and I have 4 sisters, but 2 of us have an extra bone underneath that navicular joint, which caused the arch of our foot to drop.
Interesting.
I didn't have a problem with it until I started to do distance running because of all the pressure on compacting onto the arch of the foot with distance running. Sprinting never bothered me. Dancing, teaching what I do because I'm up on my toes, didn't have a problem. But the flat foot, because it caused my arch of my foot. So that navicular. So I do have an extra bone that comes down from that navicular.
What type of dance do you do, Geraldine?
Oh, I do everything.
So did you do ballet?
I still do.
Yeah.
I also have someone else that instructs ballet, but yes, I started with tap, went to jazz, then ballet, then I've done everything from hip hop to ballroom and then, like I said, I've now got my yoga certification.
So what happens to the foot when you are in a toe position with ballet?
Like dancing on top of the toe?
Yeah.
Well, there's a lot of compression that happens. So, the worst thing is if you don't have your first 2 toes equal like this, like most people don't. So then they make an interesting insert here. But basically, so you're on your 2 point toes, which I could put the screen down and show you. You need to have the correct shoe. So those point shoes are made of like a cardboard that your foot inserts into this hard cardboard, and that's what keeps you safe. But if you don't have the flexibility of the foot to be able to point correctly, it's really harmful. And there's a lot of injuries because people don't have that flexibility and they try to do it, or they start too young before the bones have completely developed. So there's a lot of injuries that can happen if you don't do it correctly.
And did you say the pressure is mostly focused from the big toe to the middle toe?
Correct.
Yep.
Yeah. The rest of those toes are just in there, but you're really not doing much with them other than.
That's actually what I wanted to reinforce. What's cool about that is if you take the structure of the foot, I'm going to hold this guy up. And well, I'll wait until after, and then I can do the screen share. So, but no, it's on speaker mode.
Yeah.
If you take the foot. Remember how she mentioned so the order becomes starting at the ankle joint. We got Talus, Calcaneus, And now if we're talking just the lateral side of the foot, the pinky toe, so the fifth and fourth metatarsals, the pinky toe and ring toe, I guess, if we want to call that a ring toe, they connect to cuboid, this one big tarsal bone.
Yes.
The metatarsals, if you look, the fifth metatarsal, the pinky toe actually has kind of the biggest metatarsal compared to the big toe. The big toe has the first one is larger, but look at how much structure there is on that pinky toe, that fifth metatarsal, that big hook here on the side.
Yes.
Those two toes, those two metatarsals, the fifth and the fourth, they interface with this cuboid. They have more structure. They're only interfacing with that one. Over here, I can split the foot in half, quite literally, between the fifth and fourth metatarsals and then the third, second, and first. And so the arch of our foot, here's that navicular. So here's talus right there, which interfaces with navicular, which then interfaces with one of these cuneiforms, each of which interfaces with an individual metatarsal, i.e. toe. So dancers, like you were saying, you build up a lot of strength in these three toes, which interface into the arch of the foot. You know, I think I mentioned to you and in the classroom, football players, the big linemen, would go and do ballet related exercises to build up the strength in their feet. And the reasoning behind that is that where you need strength is over here, the arch side of our foot. And that's what makes this side of the foot more complex. When we walk, if you're walking correctly, if you're running correctly, and if you're dancing correctly, more of the movement actually is translated here, particularly into the big toe. If you don't have the flexibility, like you were saying, to properly plantar and dorsiflex at the ankle, and also if you can't flex and extend the big toe, you can't, particularly into extension, if you can't roll over onto your big toe and push off of it good, that messes with your whole gait, completely screws it up. So your big toe, and then also that second and third metatarsal, your index toe and your middle toe, those three really make up the arch of our foot, particularly that big toe. And the easiest thing that I focus on related to making sure the foot moves good during massage is if I'm doing a joint movement while massaging the arch of the foot, I try to move the big toe around. That's an easy way for me to know that I'm going to create pliability there. It's an oversimplification, but I'll treat it that if I want to make the arch move better, I got to make sure the big toe moves better, then move the arch of the foot around, thinking that navicular and those cuneiforms, and then even further than that, go into the medial side of the whole ankle. Because I mentioned that when we were talking about the ankle, here on the medial side, those muscles that go into the bottom of the foot that plantar flex and flex the toes, they come over here on the medial side and go through this little tunnel that goes through the arch of your foot. So people that have foot related problems, doesn't matter what we call it, but it can be Achilles tendonitis, it could be plantar fasciitis. A big part of those problems can be related to something getting disrupted and stuck down here, somewhere between like where the ankle into the arch of the foot and down into the toes. Great. And what that translates to in practice, one of the reasons why we tell you to do a good foot massage on the sideline. You know, then I can get to that stuff more easily.
Geraldine, say something so you come up.
Yeah. So I don't know if you guys have ever instructed it this way. Have you guys ever done it where you actually interlace your fingers in between your toes?
Oh, Mom, you talk about that.
I don't know if it's true. I had a very experienced massage therapist tell me one time that if you don't move your toes enough, eventually the skin in between your toes will start to web more. And that's not a good thing because then you can't move your toes as easily. I don't know, but I know during the yoga training that this like movement, like when they told us to interlace our fingers and then rotate, rotate this way, and that I love that feeling, and I do really like it, but I didn't know if that should be.
Yes, we do. When we get into some nuancing and adding methodology, that is one of the ones that we teach to add to the foot. And then, well, I've dealt primarily with athletes, but I want to make sure that they can spread their toes. And that's an important, this way. And that's an important thing with yoga too. Put that foot right up here. Let's see that sucker.
I do want to reinforce, I don't think that there's any of the skin growing together and creating a webbing. However, it can be that if you lose that strength and dexterity, and this is part of the problem with a culture and society that where we wear shoes with a lot of support from a very early age, we sometimes don't build up the strength of the muscles in these metatarsals and in our toes. So getting good at, you're not going to be perfect at it, but learn to be able to spread these individual toes. You have muscles in between these long bones that you're seeing here, called like interosseous, lumbricals. They have to do with literally kind of doing an abduction, adduction here inside of the foot itself. And where you train with that is that you can work with that dexterity and try to be able to spread the toes. I bet you Drilling can do that if I let her come up on the. You're showing up a foot right here. See, that's great. That's amazing.
Put back up there, Geraldine. Who needs to make a foot? We'll just use our own body part, right?
Well, I was going to. I started like writing. I don't know if you can see. I started writing metatarsal.
Oh, that's great. There you go.
Showing
my model.
I have, crazy like the bones stick up, but it's hard to get the correct angle for you to see it all. But this bone that you mentioned that.
I forget that. What's that process called?
The cuboid bone here.
Yeah.
Felt pretty well. So yeah, but you can't see all those tiny, the calcaneus and the talus and everything. You can't see all of those, but tarsals, metatarsals, phalanges.
In yoga, there's a lot of emphasis on the foot, isn't there?
Yeah, there is, and they teach the different, in dance there was always the point and the flex. Now all of a sudden they've done this whole Barbie foot thing. So it's supposed to be beneficial for you, like when you invert your body, to pull this big toe back, but then press the ball of the foot up towards the ceiling. So they call it Barbie toes. And now sometimes contemporary dancers put this movement into too. So instead of just pointing and flexing, then you bring in stretching the toes out and pressing the ball of the foot farther away from you with your foot. So that's supposed to be beneficial to that ball of the foot and all those bones there. I mean, that's where all of our weight, when we're walking or running, it's all there. And the one video I said, it said that over 80% of people have problems with their foot or feet at some point in their lifetime, because we have our full body weight on these bones, and they have to be so much more stronger than our hand bones because of that, so.
Now we've interrupted you a half a dozen times, so let's let you get into your a flow with your presentation, and then we'll come back and interrupt you some more.
Okay, and I apologize because I'm an artist, so my notes are extremely here and there, and so you guys can interrupt me at any time and tell me when I'm incorrect.
You go.
But so yes, we have trouble with our feet because we put our full body weight on them. The bones of the feet are the tarsals, the metatarsals, and the phalanges. Those are the extent. So there's I'm using my hand now instead of a foot diagram because my broke, but there are the phalanges, there's the distal, the middle, and the proximal. So the distal are the most distanced away from the center of your body. So you're supposed to remember the distal phalanges are the most, there's only 4 of those because our big toe, the hallux, does not have that third. So then there's the middle phalanges and the proximal, the closest to you, the proximal phalanges. Those are the ones that connect to the tarsal.
Yep.
Tarsals. Thank you. The 5 tarsal bones. There's multiple joints in between these 5 tarsal bones. Okay. And then there's the metatarsal phalangeal joint, the MTP joint. That forms the ball of the foot. And that's what gets the most movement when you're walking. The hallux is the big toe. I want to see if I can find another screenshot to show you. Yeah, so the cuneiform bone. Can you see that?
Yep.
So there's lots of ligaments and tendons. The ligaments connect the soft tissues bone to bone. The tendons connect the, no, that's wrong.
That's right.
The ligaments connect bones to bones. The
Yep.
tendons connect bones to muscles.
Yep.
There's the Achilles tendon. Everybody know, the back of the heel, the Achilles tendon here. Suffers a lot of stress injury. It attaches the calf muscles to the foot. There's the, we're just supposed to be talking about bones here because this video went into tendons and then I skipped over it. So, okay, the midfoot forms the arch of the foot. Okay, that's what I just showed you, the cuneiform bones. Those connect the first toes, the second toe, and the third toe to the metatarsals. So those 3 cuneiform bones that are on the top of the foot, the medial, intermediate, and lateral. The cubioid bone, which you asked about, that connects the smallest, that's out here, that connects the smallest toes up to the, not to the cuneiform bones, but the navicular bones. And the navicular bones are the intermediate bones, and they sit between the proximal and the between the phalanges and
the talus.
the talus. Thank you. Okay, the proximal and the talus. I feel like I've forgotten. That I kind of went around in a circle with everything. But, okay, 26 bones and 33 joints work together with 19 muscles and 107 ligaments to execute highly precise movements.
I didn't realize there were that many ligaments.
7 ligaments, because you would think there's a set of ligaments, or at least for every single one of these little joints, connecting one bone to the next bone, and then connecting maybe multiple bones together to give it kind of this bungee corded, glued together framework.
I think it's pretty cool that you actually ended up with the foot, Geraldine, because of you being a dancer.
Yeah, I enjoy the feet, and I think that's actually, I'm the weirdo, but as a massage therapist, I really enjoy helping people with like foot issues. I'm kind of a little bit of a geek about that.
I think that's very cool. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's part of, like, the yoga at the end. If you, once we can get out of this norm where we're actually able to touch people again, like that was part of my yoga training, as at the end you do the shavasana, and to relax people you start from their feet and then you work your way up to their head. But some of the things that you can do for the foot, you guys have taught me more than I learned there, but just to induce the relaxation. Even they call it the peace fingers, and you wrap your peace fingers around your big toe. You know, this is something that you do in yoga, but I don't see why we couldn't do it in massage. So you're doing this kind of a thing to move that big toe. I never did that in dance. I was always so constricted with a pointed toe that I never had that, like, oh, let's move our big toe around and not make it point and be pretty, but all of a sudden give yourself this like relaxation completely with the big toe being connected to the brain.
Unless somebody is ticklish, you can get more done rubbing the feet and the hands, which we're going to look at next, and then the head and face in terms of anti-arousal responses, calming people down and that sort of thing, than you can any other part of the body. So, and then you've got your more ancient system structure that has formalized as reflexology, and we'll touch on that later on in the program. But just all of those sensory, every joint, every ligament, every muscle is embedded with listening stations about our posture and our movement. So that all is feeding information up through our feet. And so you don't want to shortcut massaging people's feet. Spend less time on their back and more time on their feet. So is there anything else, Geraldine?
I was, I'm kind of more interested to learn in all of that. And I have the reflexology diagrams, but of course I'm in massage therapy school to learn more about it. But at one point in time during my yoga training, our instructor was a Thai masseuse, and he was phenomenal. And he came in, and I was in a very stressful time in my life, and he tried to work my shoulders, and he said, my God, girl, you are so, he said, okay, let's take a break. Let's go down to your feet. And he said, you're holding so much tension. I need to get to your feet. And then you're going to, and he was right. Mm-hmm. So I had all this tension in my shoulders, and then he got down to my feet, and then all of a sudden I just kind of like melted, and there I was. So.
And that's an interesting point that, you can think very complexly about the various ways that the body can compensate, right? We talked about kinetic chain and all that kind of stuff. But one thing that happens if we're in pain or just have stressful things going on in our life, it affects our breathing. You can depend on that. The sympathetic arousal, stress, pain creates stress. So you can always depend that there's going to be some kind of effect related to that, a physical manifestation through breathing. So that carrying stress in the shoulders and into the neck, et cetera, is just going to be one of the most common things we always see. And secondary to that, and I personally believe one of the reasons why reflexology is so focused, particularly in terms of the foot, is that you can't have something that disrupts movement. If I'm breathing really bad, that might limit the way my shoulders move. That may change my posture a little bit. There's going to be an effect that translates into the movement of these structures in one way or the other. And there's no way that's not going to end up affecting the foot. As soon as I change my posture and the way I'm standing and positioning the rest of my body, that's all feeding into the way that the weight is being pushed into the structures of the foot. And vice versa. If I change anything in the foot, that messes the whole system up, right? I mean, if you can't walk right, there's all kinds of goofy things that I've played with, where like just limiting the mobility of my big toe. And as more of a runner, it doesn't take much to screw up that mechanic, and that goes all the way up into the rest of my body. If my big toe isn't moving good, that affects the arch of the foot, which affects the ankle, which affects the knee, which affects the hip, and on we go. So it's one of those also very safe places, because if a person can bear their full body weight on their feet and walk around and move around without too much strain, doesn't have to be pretty, but if they can stand on one foot for at least a few seconds and not have it create a lot of pain, we can be pretty confident as therapists that we can apply pressure there and move the joints around, and we're not going to break anything there, because if they can walk around and put their whole body weight on it, we should have some confidence. in it. So a really good foot massage can go a long way, because then you have this whole ripple effect where it's obviously going to be a part of the compensation pattern of all kinds of stuff, almost anything. And also because of it just being so nerve rich and the sensations of having the foot work on it, it feels good. You have a pretty profound effect in just inducing that relaxation effect. So then you can even argue it goes all the interfaces all the way into breathing, you know. And the biggest go-to I have had over the course of time of trying to get good at this and working with all ranges and sizes of feet, and some of it have been really has been working on them just to simplify the process for me so that I know I'm doing everything that I can, has been just to work on the feet in multiple positions. And you're going to kind of hear that as a theme, that I try to simplify it for you guys. If you want to make sure you cover all these crazy structures of the foot without having to drive yourself crazy, just work on the foot a little bit in prone, a little bit of that top foot in sideline, a little bit of the bottom foot in sideline. Just by working on the feet in those three positions, you're going to naturally get that joint movement in all these toes and tarsals and metatarsals. And it's just, it helps clean up the process for you and lets you just focus on making sure it feels good and flows in, and with your time management and all of that. But there's so much that happens there, and I don't want to ramble on too much more, because it is a really cool thing. And I, in sports, have learned that if I got really good at making sure the foot and the ankle moved as good as it possibly could, I can never prove what I prevented. That's a sad thing in this, right? I can never prove what I prevented, but I would argue that that's the best thing I've ever been able to do with helping a person move as well as they can and limit the strain on the rest of their system. Because if they have a knee issue or a hip issue and it's translating to their foot and their ankle, if I can at least keep that going, and that's the very first contact point that they're having, right? That big toe is coming down, and then the arch of the foot has to bend, and then the ankle has to bend. If I can keep that as good as possible, then I've tended to see that it has a really good response. I work less on the very specific nuances of a person's old knee injury and go, all right, it's important to focus there, but there's less I can do there than just going in and really making sure, okay, these toes need to move. The arch of the foot needs to move. The ankle needs to move. And that accomplishes an awful lot. A good foot massage.
So Geraldine, let's see your model again.
Oh goodness. Okay, so the calcaneus and the tibia, so that's where it connects to the ankle.
Yeah.
And then it's crumbling here, but these were all of the
Can you turn your screen a little bit? So there you go.
Oh goodness. So it's better to see. Here we go.
Yeah.
So then there was the cuboid and the cuneiform, medial cuneiform navicular. They were all
Yep, I see. Yep.
they were all like that, and they were in here somewhat like that. And then we have all of these toes, the metatarsals to the phalanges went from here to here. So
Yeah.
this was the big toe, and then the middle toe, and then the next one, not the middle, I'm sorry, the second toe. This
Uh-huh.
is the middle toe. And this one, this bone broke. This metatarsal here didn't make it with the stringing. The needle broke inside of that one, actually, when I was
Interestingly enough, there's a particular name for that fracture. It's called a Lisfranc fracture. That's right there.
So then this was the what would be like the ring toe, the last, and then the baby pinky one was here, and I know these purple end of the toes are huge in proximity to what they could be, but in order for me to thread, I had to make them kind of big.
Was there anything specific you learned from this assignment other than you wanted it to be different? You wanted it to turn out differently because of your artist self.
Right. I pictured this beautiful, and I don't know how I'm going to find it where they can actually connect correctly. But it's hard. I think this arch, see that here, this arch of the foot. So at one point in time, I thought it would dry, the Play-Doh would dry. So I set my remote control underneath the Play-Doh to try to make that arch form. And then when I was threading, I tried to do an arch form to make that so that it would be seen. And I was this close to 2 days ago ordering from Amazon the actual foot like what Luke had, because I was like, every time I would try to work more with the Play-Doh, when it dried, it would fall off of the strings. And I think the person last year, that picture you showed that used the straws, I think that might have been a better idea. As if I
The
would
point is,
but then I couldn't have made these nice like bone structures.
that's right.
It was really fun, like connecting them, and making them all kind of, that's the big toe there, and making it all kind of anatomically pretty. And I thought, oh, it looks so cool. I had really good pipe dreams, but it was a challenge, and I wish I had more time, because I really kind of want to do it again. But
you can do that again, and much of the learning happens in the process, not necessarily the end result. And I particularly loved having your foot in the camera.
Well, I did make sure I took a shower and got them nice and lotioned up so they didn't look disgusting for everybody. But yeah.
Yeah, well, very, very, very good. Very good. It's a very complicated area because there's so much going on. So now let's compare that. Did you get everything in, Geraldine?
I believe so. I think I covered all of the phalanges and the proximal and the metatarsals. I think I did.
It'll be fun to see how Londa, I'm pretty sure it's Londa, works.
It is
structure using the hand. So let's if you feel like you've completed that, and I do apologize for all of the disruption, but with your background in dancing, it really is insightful for people to see what goes on with that. So Londa, let's see what you got.
okay. First off, I want to say the older I've gotten and the more dysfunction my body has had, the more amazed I am at how our body works when it is functioning, how it, when we're walking on uneven surfaces and stuff like that, when my body isn't hurting, how it levels us and adjusts to how we move and stuff. I've been amazed by that for a while now. And going through some of this is just really reinforcing that. So I'm going to share my screen. I'm going to do my PowerPoint first before I show my model. And so I had the joints of the hand, or the hand, whatever. The human hand has 27 bones, and I had the palm and the fingers. So since there are 8 bones in the wrist, I'll be talking about the other 19 bones. Okay, there are 14 phalanges, and there are the 5 metacarpals. And let's see. And of course, the thumb only has 2 phalanges, while your fingers have got 3. A single phalange is called a phalanx. Is that correct?
I think so.
Okay. And I also found it interesting that the joints of the hand are one of the few open kinetic chains, meaning that they can move independently without causing movement in another joint. So you can wave without your arm moving or that sort of thing. I thought that was kind of interesting. Here are the 5 metacarpals. Each finger has a proximal phalanx, a middle phalanx, and a distal phalanx. The thumb has just the 2 phalanges. It has the proximal and the distal. They are numbered from the thumb to the pinky. That makes the thumb the number 1 and the pinky the number 5. The proximal phalange articulates with the metacarpal, and the knuckles are the rounded ends of the metacarpal. At the that would be at the distal end. And then,
Oh, these are the joints.
Yep, these are our joints. The joints of the hand all have nice long names. The joints between the metacarpals and the proximal phalanges are the metacarpal phalangeal joints, or MPC. It's one of the few times I can appreciate. I really hate acronyms, initials, and that sort of thing, but I can appreciate that. There also, I found some references where they refer to them as the MP. The joints between the phalange and the interphalangeal joints, the proximal and the distal, are known as the PIP, the DIP, and the IP joints for short. Okay. And here we're just kind of reinforcing the joints between the phalanges. They are a hinge joint that just permit flexion and extension. And again, they're proximal interphalange and distal interphalanges, or pips and dips.
Yep.
And these are the metacarpal phalange joints. I had fun with the graphics, what can I say? The intricate pattern of the hand joint is where all the movement involves the fingers takes place. The hand is capable of a variety of functions that vary from precise handling to acts of great strengths. The opposable thumb is very unique with the human body, and it allows us to grasp and manipulate objects. Because the thumb is in a resting position, it's rotated relative to the rest of the fingers. The thumb faces the other fingers. The first metacarpal joint of the thumb consists of these structures. It's an articulating bone. The first metacarpal with the trapezium of the wrist is a synovial saddle joint, and it is a biaxial joint. And I did forget to mention that our, what was it, let me go back. The metacarpal phalange joints are also biaxial. I forgot that whole bit. Hang on, I'm gonna go back. Yeah, the joints between the metacarpals and the 4 proximal phalanges are the metacarpal phalange joints. That joint is a condyloid joint. It's also called a lapsed joint, and it is biaxial. Biaxial joints allow movement in 2 directions. The movement is in 2 planes around 2 axes. And one motion usually dominates. The biaxial joints allow for flexion, extension, as well as abduction and adduction. The distal end of the metacarpals are convex and fit into the concave end of the proximal phalanges of the fingers. Sorry, skipped right over that.
Well, it's important too on how those work. That's why we have so much mobility with our hand, is that we've got
Okay.
joint joints in there.
Yes. Yeah. To palpate each of the 5 metacarpals, the proximal, middle, and distal phalanges, the connecting joints. Remember that the thumb lacks the middle phalanx. You can partially flex your fingers and find the groove marking the MCP joint of each finger. The joint is located at the first knuckle and is palpated best on either side of the extensor tendon. And speaking of tendons, there are a whole bunch in the hand, way more than what I wanted to cover in this amount. Like the foot, there's a whole lot going on. One of the interest in the book, there's over 20 pages covering the tendons and the muscles and ligaments, and I just didn't feel like I could cover that, so I threw these pictures in. I also, one of the things I found very interesting is that the belly of the muscles for our hands, most of those are up around our elbow, which seems like a long ways to go, but I can understand there's not a whole lot of space in our hand. You can see there are some muscles in the hand in that middle long, I forgot I do have I can put not that one. I can do that. Yeah,
Oh,
you can see there are some muscling here, but if you look at the tendons and such and the ligament, your muscle, the belly, as we talk about, is way up here near the elbow area. And then you can see all the ligaments in here on the foot where they connect all the different joints to hold them together. So, all right, I'm going to stop my screen share. Maybe. Back over here.
very nice presentation. I love the skeletons doing strange things. There she is.
It'd be amazing.
All right, and turn my video on.
Yep. But isn't it amazing?
I'm sorry, what'd you say, Luke?
Isn't it? I always find it as I look more at this, and I hope you guys are. I mean, obviously, you should be interested in how this all interrelates, but it's unique in that, like, comparing the big toe and our thumb. You know, that's a big adaptation for humans. Our opposing thumb structure with this much dexterity in the hand is really unique and complex. And it's also, if you compare it down to the foot, with the big toe interfacing into the arch, which is also a very unique thing about our bodies. It's just one of those really cool, when I draw these comparisons, this idea of shoulders to hips, knees to elbows, wrists to ankles, and then even in the hands and feet, you can even get that more specific, that the thumb to the big toe, there's a lot of really unique aspects to all of that. Very good.
All right, here we go. Where'd you? There she is.
I'm still here. I'm not very crafty, so I made a lot of phone calls begging people for ideas and input on my project. But I do have a model of the hand. I use straws to represent the different bones. I do have in here, to show the joint there, I do have, one fell out. I do have little beads here that, and then the beads are covered with a kind of a Play-Doh clay thing I've never worked with before to show the example of the cartilage. And then my little strings here are not properly attached, but they are the tendons that allow my hand to move so that it functions. And there was actually a YouTube video on how to create this. My daughter, I didn't connect with her until last night, and I told her why I had called her the week before, and she says, well, Charles made a little robot hand, which is what this is. They had used the same video that another friend had pointed out for me. I did use different size straws for the different size bones, but they're not exact, of course. But yep, that's my project.
Love it. I love it. I'd seen it before.
Because I hated it.
Now, what did you?
This is not my thing.
Not crafty. What did you learn
Yep.
about? Because you're a carpenter and electric, all of that. What did
Yes.
you learn about the mechanics of just the structure of how these bones are put together, related to maybe building something or?
I didn't relate it that way. I'm more of a laborer than the skilled. I did, I don't do the planning or anything like that. I do what I'm told, and you better give me, I'm mechanical in other ways, and I can figure a lot of stuff out. It's made me think, like I said, I've thought along these lines anyway, as I have different challenges in life as my body works against me. And it brought a different understanding of how complex the body is and how much is going on underneath the skin. There is a whole lot in there going on that we don't think about. We take very much for granted until it doesn't work. And then it's like, why doesn't it work? It's so simple, it should work. No, it's not simple at all. It's very, very complex.
I think that's a real profound observation, by the way. And I expect that the rest of your classmates, as they have also tackled this project in a multitude of different ways, appreciate that. That's one of the lessons I want you to learn, is that there is a design to this, and it's designed so that it functions, structure, function. And it works as a unified organism. Everything affects everything. And it's very symmetrical too, just like Luke has been talking about. The hand is like the foot, and so there's a simplicity in the design, but there's a complexity in how it functions. And so it's pretty amazing. And I loved the way you had your fingers move, that the pulleys and the tendons, and then you'll learn about sheath tendons and that other stuff when we get into the muscles a little bit more. Very much operate the way you had those strings working on those.
Yeah. Well, when the kids were young, we did the experiment with the chicken foot. You pull on the tendons and watch the foot curl up and release it to watch it extend back out. And this also, as you were talking, kind of reminds me of technology in general, which is another part of my background more than construction. Everybody doesn't think about how complex the network structure is and the computer is. They just take for granted as they use it, and it works great, except for when it doesn't work. And our bodies in some ways are the same. They work great, except for when they don't.
Well, very good job. Very good job. Okay.
Thank you.
The axial skeleton or the appendicular skeleton is complete. Well done.
Very well done.
So now we head into our axial skeleton. And who's up next, Luke Allen Fritz?
Check. That will be Allison with the ribs.
All right, Allison.
Yay, I'm so excited.
You want me to pull up your PowerPoint, Allison?
I'll just show my diorama first, and then we can get into the PowerPoint. So here's the ribs. They don't function, but I just thought of a way they could function. I could have put like a straw or something on the back, and I could have moved them up and down at the same time. But so here's the sternum. There's 3 parts of the sternum. You have the manubrium, the sternal body. I think that's what it's called.
Yep.
And then we have the xiphoid process is at the bottom. I made that with hot glue. And then one of the landmarks on the sternum is the jugular notch at the top. That is between the clavicles. And then we have the ribs. There are 12 sets, so 24 total. The first 7 ribs are called true ribs. The fancy name for it is vertebrosternal ribs because they actually connect to the sternum. And then 8 through 12 are called false ribs because they're not attached to the sternum. They connect to this costal cartilage, which is all hot glue. Very proud of that. The fancy name for ribs 8 through 12 are vertebrochondral ribs. And then 11 and 12 are floating ribs because they don't actually connect to anything on the sternum or the costal cartilage. They're just floating. But this was really fun to make. I really like it. I'm really proud of it. And then
vertebrae.
I have the 12 thoracic vertebrae right here. There's a little bit of scoliosis going on towards the bottom because the hot glue was not cooperative. But it starts out small and it gets bigger as we get to the bottom. The 12th one is completely made out of hot glue.
The vertebrae are made out of hot glue, Allison?
Yeah. Oh. And then I just, for the discs, I just left gaps because I wasn't sure what to put there. So I just left them. And then I think we can get into that PowerPoint.
Okay. So that is a beautiful model.
Thank you.
All just really unique. All right.
Got really crafty.
I'm going to share my screen and pull up her PowerPoint.
Okay, I'm going to turn my video off
Yeah,
so that I'm not lagging.
So you just tell me when you want me to move it, all right, Allison?
Okay, sounds good. So I did the rib cage. We can go on to that second slide there. So for general information, the rib cage is just an arrangement of ribs attached to the vertebral column and the sternum. The ribs are also known as the thoracic cage, and it's a bony and cartilaginous structure that surrounds the thoracic cavity, and it supports the shoulder girdle with the clavicles to form the core of the human skeleton. It encloses and protects the heart and the lungs. And I thought this was a cool fact because I'm really into breathing and stuff like that because I'm an asthmatic. The ribs expand 3 to 5 centimeters with every single breath. And I thought that was very interesting.
Yeah.
So on to the next slide. The typical human rib cage consists of 24 ribs in 12 pairs. It also has the sternum, the xiphoid process, which attaches to the bottom of the sternum, costal cartilages, which connect ribs 8 through 12 to the ribs, except for 11 and 12, they're floating ribs. Mm-hmm. And it has 12 thoracic vertebrae. The ribs are described based on their location and connection with the sternum. So when you're talking about ribs, say you're talking about rib 4, you would describe it in relation to the sternum. The vertebrae, all ribs attach posteriorly to the thoracic vertebrae and are numbered accordingly from top to bottom. As you can see, they go from 1, 2, 3, 4, all the way to the bottom in that order. And then for the sternum, they connect anteriorly. Each rib ends in a costal cartilage. Ribs 1 through 7 are the true ribs and attach directly to the sternum via the costal cartilage. Mm-hmm. Right. And yeah, so I put a lot of pictures in here just because I'm a visual learner, and that's how I found the best use of identifying all the body parts and stuff like that. So I found this one extremely useful in identifying the false ribs, the true ribs, and the floating ribs. And then on the next slide are all the names of the bones and the bony landmarks. So in that picture on the left, you can see where I was talking about the jugular notch, which is at the center of the sternum between the clavicles. And then you can see where the costal cartilage, the sternal angle is actually where the manubrium connects to the sternum body, that little line right there. And then the xiphoid process at the bottom, it's that little notch that just, I'm not really sure what it's for, but it's there.
Attachment point for the diaphragm.
Is it? Okay. And then you can see the false ribs and the floating ribs. And then I also put that picture on the right so you could see where the thoracic vertebrae connect to the ribs. They connect to those little nodules that are on the edges of them. And then on the next slide is the sternum in particular, because the sternum is actually pretty complex. It has a bunch of grooves on the edge of it that help connect the cartilage to it. It's kind of like when you're making pottery and you have to scratch the clay to attach other parts to it, like if you're making a mug. That's kind of how I thought of it. So you can see all the landmarks on the sternum. You have all these notches, the suprasternal notch, the clavicular notch. I could name all those, but that would take a very long time. But on the right, you can see where those facets attach to the costal cartilage for ribs 1 through 7.
Yep.
And it's just very interesting. I didn't realize how intricate the sternum was. I thought it was just a plate that just sat in your chest, but it's actually got a ton of grooves and landmarks in it. And then on the next slide is a picture of one rib individually. You can see where they labeled the head of the rib. You always hear that term rib head, but I never knew what it looked like. So I thought that was interesting. And then you have, from the head, you have the neck of the rib. And it curves at an angle. So there are all the bony landmarks on the rib. And then on the next slide, I have the type and their movements and where they belong. So on the vertebra at your rib joints that act as pump handle movements, and they're limited to a small degree of gliding and rotation at the rib head. The function of these movements is to enable lifting of the ribs upwards and outwards during breathing. And then also at the spine, you have transverse joints. And these are a type of, I can't say that word, synchondrosis type of joint, which under physiological conditions allows gliding movement. And then at the sternum, you have other joints called costosternal joints that help increase the anteroposterior diameter of the thorax during inspiration while you're breathing. And then you have the manubriosternal joint that allows a small amount of movement. It has a total range of about 7 degrees, and most of the range of motion is caused by the angulation between the axes of manubrium and the body of the sternum. And it's followed by an additional superior displacement of the body of the sternum. And then you also have synovial interchondral joints that also allow for gliding movements during breathing. And on the next slide, I have a picture of all those joints. So on the left, we have the vertebral joints, and on the right, we have the joints of the sternum. And then I didn't put the ligaments on there, but I have them in my notes. So the ligaments at the vertebrae at your spine, you have intertransverse ligaments. And then at the ligaments at the sternum, you have radiate sternocostal ligaments. And then I also have some muscles that belong to the rib cage as well. We have external intercostals that help elevate the ribs, internal intercostals that help depress the ribs during breathing. We have innermost intercostals that depress the ribs during forced expiration, subcostals that depress the ribs, transversus thoracis that help depress the ribs, serratus posterior helps elevate the ribs, and we have levatorus castorum that also helps elevate the ribs. And that's all I have on that.
Oh, that's excellent.
Thank you.
We will revisit this whole thorax multiple times as the class progresses. Along the back, where the ribs attach into the vertebrae, people have a sensation of a lot of stiffness in through there, and they'll act like they want their back cracked. They get some relief with that in through there. And we'll be showing you as we move forward a lot of little muscles that go from transverse process to transverse process and then incorporate the ribs. While the movement of the rib, each rib is tiny, it's very important in order for us to create a bellows thing so we can breathe. So we'll be coming back to this over and over and over as we think about our breathing mechanism. And then this is also a protective cage for the lungs and the heart. The sternum, we're bilaterally symmetrical, and when we form in the womb, there are folds that are the dorsal fold and the anterior fold, and there's a line that runs right through the sternum into the xiphoid right through here. And when let's see if there's another picture of that. When they did the open heart surgery on me, they start cutting through that line, and then it'll automatically give, and then it just springs right open, like almost like a jack in the box kind of a thing. And we get back in the classroom, I'll let you feel that. And then they wire that thing back together. But can you imagine what happens with the front springs open, but then all of those ribs are jammed in the back attachments? So it's a pretty interesting dynamic that happens with all of that. Sometimes these will be called facet joints back here. Did you run into that term at all? Facet joints?
I didn't, but there was a lot of different terminology, especially for the joints in particular. There was a lot of different names that they used that meant the same thing. Yeah. And I was getting a little confused there, but I was like, oh, that means the same thing as this.
Yeah, and we'll have to, as we review for the MBLEX exam, we're going to have to bring those multiple names in. So if you encounter one and you learned it one way, but they're using another term that can also be used for that, you'll be able to sort that out. And I don't know, I don't know why sometimes in anatomy there's multiple names, but it's kind of confusing. So let's see your model one more time.
Okay. Let me turn my camera on real quick. Here she is.
Isn't that nice? I would have never thought about using hot glue. Look at those clavicles winging up there.
I thought it looked the most like cartilage. I was like, let's just use a bunch of hot glue. And it took a very long time.
Most impressed you.
So that was my favorite part, actually, was making the cartilage.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, the cartilage was the best part for me. I liked it.
Right. We're really into costal cartilage here. But all of you have got that as a visual when we talk about working on the thorax and the importance of all of that. Well done.
Thank you.
Like she was saying, just it's surprising as you delve into this how complex something that at the initial perspective of even something like the sternum and how it interfaces with the cartilage that makes up so much of the ribs. I mean, it's one of those aspects you mentioned related to breathing and your own experience with that. And breathing's important, right? So an impression of that system, my mom called it a bellows. I think like a bellows or an umbrella that kind of has to open and close with each breath. And just us thinking about that as we're applying compressions on the rib cage in various angles and directions, that whole idea of just how can I help a person breathe better? In many cases, it's just helping them, bringing the ribs back down. We get stuck in inspiration. We need to bring the bellows, bring the umbrella back down. So
yeah, and in the chiropractic setting, I have found that's been a very common unknown complaint for patients. Like they don't even know that they have ribs that need to be back in alignment. And it makes a huge difference, and they haven't even noticed that it was a problem.
Oh yeah, if
Um,
anybody here has ever felt a rib out, it's a sucker.
Yeah. But I really encourage watching that video that I sent in the group chat that shows the depression of the ribs. Because when I watched it for the first time, I was actually really shocked. I didn't realize it moved that much. And it was really impressive to me. I didn't realize that it functioned that way. So
Yeah,
utilize that.
there's a lot to be in, a lot of involvement when we get to the thorax. And massage, what massage can really do to support a normal function with that, so that we get a normal breath, which then interfaces with the autonomic nervous system. You know, it's a pretty cool circle that comes with that. Very good job.
Thank you.
Now, who's next, Luke Allen?
Michaela with the skull atlas axis complex, the bowling ball and a toothpick.
All right, Michaela, you're up. We got one after that?
Yes, then we have the vertebrae.
Okay,
Can you hear me okay?
we got you.
Okay, my heat just kicked on, so it might be a little loud. I apologize for the crudeness. My original law model broke in my move, so yeah.
Well, Geraldine understands.
Okay, so I'll have you all nod your head yes with me. All right, cool. You just activated your atlanto-occipital joint, which allows your head to go back and forth.
Oh,
And that does so by your atlas. It like, oh shoot, what's the word? It like slides along your occipital bone, which allows, and then you also have, like, when you rotate your head, that's your atlanto-axial joint moving, which allows your head rotation. So got another little tiny one.
hold it up just a little higher. There you go.
So
Exciting.
inside here you have your transverse ligament, which is helping keep your dens from crushing your spinal cord. Then you've got your
Is that paper? Is that a paper vertebrae?
yes.
It's origami. It's an
Yes.
origami vertebrae.
Yes, I used paper. That's all I had. Paper and string. So then you got your, so right here, that piece of tape is your is that joint, which is where the axial bone helps move against on those, which is where your head can move. And then you've got your down, let's see, right, it's the, okay, so back here we have like the apical ligament that does on here go down.
Mm-hmm.
And then in here you have your it's your atlanto-occipital membrane.
Yes.
It helps keep you attached there. And then you've got let's see, this ligament here, which is the
Michaela, your hair matches your ligaments.
yeah, it's your intertransverse. Okay, so you have your intertransverse ligament, which helps to here, and then this one too, which is your nuchal ligament.
Yes.
That is in the front there. And then yeah, your spinal cord and stuff just kind of goes on down in through the holes. And then these two are each separately attached through ligaments to help with the maximum mobility. And then there was also, let me see. All right, I said that. Oh yeah, the skull articulates with the atlas using the surface of the occipital condyles. That way your head can move freely. Does flexion, extension, and rotation. So they're a type of synovial joints.
Mhm.
Let's see. Your atlas and axis are also known as your C1 and C2. And then like your occipital muscles also help attach in there. But I was really surprised that once you took the muscles away, there's not really much holding everything there. So that kind of, I guess, confused me a little bit, just because there's just really not much. I was surprised at how much really wasn't overly there.
Yeah, it's pretty much a muscular attachment.
Yeah, because it's just like your bones are pretty much just kind of sliding with each other. I mean, you've got, the fluids and the cartilage in there to help, but other than that, it's really not.
It's like a stack of Lincoln logs with a bowling ball on it.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. That's kind of what I found.
That nuchal ligament that you mentioned is a little bit bigger than sometimes we realize. It's thin, but it's like a sail.
Yeah.
So it gives a little bit more, but you're absolutely right. For the most part, that's why, I mean, we've all had our things. I get the tension headachy thing. And that's a big reason why, because those little tiny muscles have to not only allow all these crazy movements, but they're just trying to keep it all stable and in a good position.
Yeah, it really is essentially like you guys just got a big bowling ball sitting on a twig.
Yeah.
It won't take much.
Have neck tension. I mean, it makes sense. People have neck tension. Trying to balance this all the time. And, we'll get into more dynamics around that.
I did find like a really nice picture online.
Oh, good.
That had all of like the ligaments and stuff. So I kind of used that to try to help me. But I really did. I like that one.
It's a great picture.
Shows a little bit more than my little paper.
I'm going to tell you what, origami, that was good. That was good. So other than, it's amazing that we can hold our head up at all. Was there anything else you learned by trying to get this head to attach, or the function, how mobile that is in there?
Just honestly, just trying to get like the little pieces to attach, like, because there wasn't really much to. I think maybe if I had a little bit different supplies, it would have been maybe a little bit easier. But yeah, I just kept looking at it like, oh my gosh, there has to be more to it than that. But it's really not. I was really surprised at how little there was keeping everything.
The complexity in the muscle structures that surround it.
Yeah.
Get into that, we'll want to remember what I'm saying. The bony structure, unlike the hip, for example, where there's a bony structure, and it is a form providing a lot of the stability. Here with the cervical area, where the head comes onto the cervical vertebrae, it's more of a form or a force. It's called a force stability because it's the muscles that have to interface. Well, based on everything else that's going on with you, you did an excellent job there.
Oh, thank you. I'm sorry for the crudeness of it. The first one was
like you
so
said,
much better.
It's more about like mentally processing like all this, and the aha moments you had with that, realizing like, wow, there isn't a whole lot holding on here. So no wonder, like Sandy was saying, that there can be a lot of built up tension there.
Yeah.
With this, and you guys have heard me talk about, is that a big part of how our bodies adapt and keeping us balanced and coordinated is making sure our eyes are level with the horizon. So what has to do that there? That atlas is a tiny little thing, actually. It's the smallest of your vertebrae, and it's holding on the biggest chunk.
Yeah.
So these tiny little things that we have to do with our skulls right there at those two joints to get our heads positioned and stable so that the rest of our body knows where we are. Goes into your ear, it does a lot of cool stuff in terms of if your head is offset, the rest of your body doesn't really know where you are and you lose a lot of balance and coordination. So, no, very good.
People that have inner ear issues like I do. I have benign proximal vestibular vertigo. Do you like that? It's where a crystal, a little pebble like thing gets in the wrong spot in my ear and it simulates movement. And so it's very mechanical. So it's like it like swings back and forth in there, like if you had a marble in some water. And so to prevent that sway feeling that I get, I will hold my head very still. You know, and when I want to turn my whole body. Well, you can just imagine all of these muscles in here to keep, you know, because you don't want a lot of that pivot like you were talking about, or that turning with that. And so when you're this dizziness, a lot of people have it and don't even know they have it. So there's this neck, cervical, occipital, atlano junction in here that becomes pivotal. There are chiropractors that the only place they adjust is just right there. And that is how they affect the whole body downstream on that. So, like I said, again, based on everything that was going on, you did an excellent job, lady.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
So that leaves Leah, right?
Yep.
Last but not least, lady.
Cool. Okay, so I want to preface this by saying, Geraldine, I feel your pain because I did Play-Doh as well, and my cat ate part of my project. That's a different story. No, we don't need to talk about that. That's fine. She's fine. She went to the vet. Everything's good. But anyway, yeah. So I made 3 models to kind of like adapt. So this is my 5 vertebra. So I did like the lumbar vertebral joints, L1 through L5.
Sponge and paper towel. That is fantastic.
Yeah, that's what I mean. I know it was a little better, but that's fine. So in the back here, we have this posterior and superior views of like the back of the vertebra, and the ligaments are together with like straws and pipe cleaners and what else? Coffee filters.
I see that.
You get in between all of them, and then the see how there's Play-Doh like right here? Those were the 3 vertebra, and then like I had to use pipe cleaners for the rest of them at the bottom there. And the coffee filters like in between each of the vertebra are the invertebral discs, so I could show them better. And these are the vertebra themselves. They're sponges. And I'm gonna attempt to flex them. So flex on, extension, lateral flexion, and then there's a little bit of rotation.
Very good.
And then, we're not done yet. I have a PowerPoint too, but I just kind of wanted to get that one out of the way because it is but this is a posterior view of the vertebra, and I'll like go through really quick and like talk about each of them because they're so intricate that I just did it on a paper plate. This right here is just the invertebral disc, and I kind of like carved a little center for the center of it because that's the nucleus pulposus, and the whole thing surrounding it is the annulus fibrosus. I don't know if I'm saying that correctly, but that's separate. And so here we have the inferior articular process right here. Underneath is like the lamina. On the side here, we have the spinous process.
Yep.
The accessory process is right here. I did notches in them too, so they are indicated on there. The transverse process.
Yep.
We have the mammillary process. That's going to come out not correctly. The superior process. We have the vertebral canal, which is like right at the top there.
Yeah.
The vertebral body, which is like right next to it, which is like the bluish greenish clay underneath. I think that's it for that one. And that's like I got that like a picture of it, and it was like the L3 and L4 vertebra posterior view. So that's kind of like what I used. And then you can see like all the notches and stuff. And then I have the L2 vertebra superior view.
Yes, good.
Yes. So the top right here is a vertebral body.
Yep.
And then we have the pedicles on each side. The middle triangle part is the vertebral foramen. And here we have another, like the transverse process.
Mm-hmm.
We have the superior articular process again. We have the mammillary process.
Mm-hmm.
We have the lamina again, like up there. I was running out of room. And then we have the spinal process. Oh, spinosis process, my bad.
Spinal.
And then we have the accessory process. So, yeah.
Out spots. When you see lots of sticky out spots, you know there's lots of little things that are attaching there.
Right, right. And that's when I get into my PowerPoint, I'll talk more about like this mess right here. So that will be in the PowerPoint. So let me just pull it up really quick. 1 second.
I see a picture of Teresa there. We've come a long way since your shoulder, haven't we?
Does that work? Can everybody see it?
Yep.
Okay, cool. Okay, so the third area, so I have general information about like the lumbar and vertebral joints. The third area of the vertebral column is located in the lower back between the thoracic and sacral vertebral segments. It is made up of 5 vertebrae, L1 through L5, which are the largest in the vertebral column. And the lumbar spine main function is for weight bearing. Also, BT dubs, everybody like take notes and stuff because we got something going on at the end. So pay attention because it'll be worth your while, I promise.
All right.
But some of the key features are the vertebral bodies, which are large and shaped like kind of like a kidney bean. They're deeply anterior and help create like lumbosacral angle.
Mm-hmm.
The vertebral foramen, which is the triangle shaped one that I showed you on the plate, like in the very middle. The 5th lumbar vertebrae, L5, is the largest vertebrae, and vertebra body and transverse process carries the weight of the upper body, so that one's particularly important. And then I put show Play-Doh model because I was going to do it in the middle, but we're not doing that now. So more key features are the mammillary process is found on the posterior surface of each superior articular processes. Accessory processes are found on the posterior surface of the bottom of each transverse process. The bony structures, the pedicles, which are those pink dots I showed you, are posteriorly attached to the cranial part of the body and forms an arc with the lamina. The lamina forms the vertebral arch along with the pedicles and is flat in the central of the spinous process. The spinous processes are small and wide. The articular processes has like vertical sides, and the transverse process are long and skinny. I just tried to like describe them to make it easier.
Mm-hmm.
There's 2 joint types between the vertebral bodies. And the first one is between the vertebral bodies. The vertebral bodies are attached by the invertebral discs made out of phytocartilage, aka symphysis. And then that's the coffee filters. So.
Yeah.
And then in between the vertebral arches, they're made out of articulations of the superior and inferior articular processes, and that's a synovial joint type. The ligaments in the vertebra are anterior and posterior longitudinal ligaments run the length of the column of the vertebra, and that was like the straws I had.
Mm-hmm.
Cloaking the vertebral bodies and invertebral discs, I had colored on them, but they didn't come out. So interspadicis ligament attaches to the spinous process spinous process of nearby vertebra, and that was the pipe cleaner.
Mhm.
What did I do? Hold on one second. The ligament flavum, which attaches to the lamina of nearby vertebra, and the supraspinous, I'm not saying this right.
Supraspinous.
Thank you. Ligament attaches to the tops of the nearby spinous processes. And then the iliolumbar ligaments in the lumbosacral joint between L5 and S1 vertebra. They are around the transverse process of the L5 vertebra to the ilia of the pelvis. And that is the end of this one. It's like pink. And I kind of it's not shaped correctly or anything, but that's where that is supposed to be.
Oh, I see it. I see it. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. The lumbar movements are flexion, extension, lateral flexion, and then like a slight rotation. Okay, cool. So let's play a game, guys. Let me get off.
Here we go.
Okay, cool. For this, hold on one second. Okay, I'm going to ask you guys 6 questions. I have to finish saying them before you answer. So let me finish the question before you say something. Do a physical thumbs up, or if you don't have video, you can do like the thumbs up in the chat. That's fine too. And whoever wins gets like a $5 coffee Venmo. If you don't feel comfortable with Venmo, we can do like the next time you guys come in, I can give you like a 5, or I can bring you like a coffee. Either one. And then I wrote my like Venmo username, but I can just text that to the group chat after we're done. And then I'll say like what my number is. And if you guys don't feel comfortable like doing that, I can literally just give you 5, or mail. I can do snail mail too. But just like let me know. And is everybody ready?
Yeah, she told us that Luke and I don't get to play. So.
Well, because you have an unfair advantage.
Yes.
I mean, you are the teacher. So, I mean, if you really want that free coffee, feel free. But yeah, okay, we're going to get started, all right? How many vertebrae make up the lumbar? Oh, Allison, I saw you first.
5.
Perfect, cool. Also, I have everyone's names written down too, so I'll be keeping score. Okay. What joint type is in between the vertebral arches?
Ooh.
This is the hardest one, I think. Oh, Allison.
You said something about the lamina with the vertebral arches.
You're close, but it's like a specific like joint type. You're close. I might give it to you, like give you like a half point, but any other guesses? Oh, I can't see you, Gail. Got you, Gail.
Is it a synovial joint?
Yes. Okay, so Gail, you got that. Cool. You were close, Allison. You were close. Okay. Where are the invertebral discs located? I'll give you Gail.
Between the vertebrae?
Yes, in between the vertebrae. Yes. Very good. Okay. What key feature, and that's how it's titled on the PowerPoint, is triangle shaped? Oh, Allison, I saw you first.
Is it the vertebral canal? I can't remember the exact name for it, but it's the part that's in the vertebral column.
You're close. You're so close. But do we have any correct, like the exact terminology? I know, Gail, I think I saw you.
I was just going to guess the lamina.
No.
No.
Okay. So that one is the vertebral foramen. So I know that was a little bit of a mouthful, but all right. Next question. Where is the lumbar located? Oh, I think I saw Allison.
It's at the bottom of the vertebral column.
Lower back. Yep, you got it.
Boom.
I'll give that to you. That's close.
Yay.
Yeah.
I'm so excited.
Okay, so we have a tie between Gail and Allison right now, and I have a bonus question in case we it's a tie. What is the function of the lumbar spine? I think I just showed the answer, hopefully not. Oh, okay, Allison.
I would say support for the vertebral column for the entire spine, and for small rotations, and for flexion and extension.
I put weight bearing, so yours was a lot more specific. So I'll give it to you. Okay, so
Yay!
followed by Gail. Yay! Okay, so
Yay, I'm so excited.
if you're comfortable, you can message the group chat, and I will Venmo you like $5.
Yeah, I'm so
I
excited.
didn't say
Thank you.
that it's like because none of the numbers are saved. What'd you say? I'm sorry. I was talking a lot.
I'm so excited. Thank you.
No problem. No problem. I figured it was good because I know like everyone's presentation's really interesting, but it's like the end of the day. So I figured I was either going to go like first or like last, depending on the list. So
That was very fun. Excellent, excellent. So what was your biggest challenge in making all of this work? I love your coffee filter sponge model.
yeah, so I like Geraldine, like I really wanted to do the Play-Doh, and I knew I was gonna have to do it on like the plates like I did for some of it because it's just so like detailed. But I had, like I said, I had Play-Doh attached pretty well with like glue and like tape on the back of my spine, but like I said, my cat ate like a little bit of it. So like I just ended up using a pipe cleaner for like the last vertebra, like in posterior and like the back of it. So
all of the vertebrae are called irregular bones. The scapula is an irregular bone. Makes sense. Lots of irregular parts to it.
right.
And you get a lot of landmarks on those irregular bones. And then like the humerus and the femur and the radius and the ulna and the tibia and the fibula, those are all long bones. But the cuneiforms, those are irregular bones again. So that's another way of classifying the bones. So, and the ribs attach onto the thoracic vertebrae. So they come in on the transverse process, but each vertebrae has to stack one on top of the other, just like if you were building a Lego castle.
Yeah.
And those little, those are like little joints in and of themselves. And then you have little holes that happen. One vertebrae has half of a hole and the one under it has another half of a hole. And they make a hole. And that's where your spine, your spinal nerves come out, is through those little holes in through there. So if the shape of those little holes changes because the vertebrae twists a little bit, or the coffee filter, the disc changes shape, or how high, how full it is, then that hole isn't it isn't easy for the spinal nerve to get through that little hole, and we'll call that a pinch. That's one example of a pinched nerve, is when that happens in through there. So were you surprised at all the little teeny pieces?
Yes, I will admit that some of them I was like, oh my God, they sound the same. But I was like, no, they're different. But like once I saw, I'll have to share the picture to the group chat. Like I looked online at this really specific picture, and it showed like the posterior, the superior, and then like a side of the vertebral column, and it actually really helped a lot, like to break it the way it broke it down. So that's how I based my model off of. Because that was really, it was just very specific, and every other thing I like looked at, it was a little confusing, but then like I was like, oh, okay, so that actually makes sense. So and actually when I made the model, like the Play-Doh models and stuff, it actually really helped. So
well, I am very impressed, you guys, and I know it's been a long day, and it would have been an impossible day if we didn't have multiple presenters and such creative models to show everybody. And we've went through the whole skeleton and all the joints. That's a lot. Now, when you study this, think of the main bony landmarks and play with the various structures that you have going on with this. And I'm going to be very proud to show this out to other educators on how well you did with all of this.
Yeah, I can't tell you guys. I think this could be one of the better presentations for lots of people trying to learn this, because the way you guys all frame it, and so you could explain it better to us and the rest of the class, I mean, you can't really do much better than that. This has been, in my opinion, one of the better like group presentations on being able to chop and present all the joints of the whole skeleton. We had a big enough group to be able to accomplish that. So it's been pretty cool for me to see how everybody brought a different presentation quality to it, which kept it interesting. And then we were able to bring it all together, because ultimately this is a huge thing that we deal with. Joint related dysfunction and understanding joints are a big thing that we're going to deal with. You guys are going to deal with as massage therapists. So I thought this was a great success.
Well, and you know, it's the when you teach something, when you have to try to, that you are all teachers today, when you do that, you have to know it too. And you bumble through stuff and you stumble over pronouncing words, and but it ingrains. And so you've seen examples of how you can, in your own self-learning, build models. We're going to do something similar when we think of the muscles in the area, because that's a very kinesthetic, you know, it's a visual thing, it's a hearing thing, it's a, you know, you use your hands, it's kinesthetic. So multiple pathways for learning. And so I'm also in these assignments, these little assignments, trying to give you other strategies for your own self-learning on all of this. And I was, again, very impressed. Very good job. And so all of the other stuff that I had in play, we'll pick up for next week. And so you have a ticket. You can leave the presentation once you give me one little thing that you got a nice chuckle. You chuckled about it in terms of these presentations. And I chuckled over Geraldine putting her foot up in the camera. So, Luke, what was your chuckle?
Oh, I think I was gonna say that my chuckle. I liked the game. I thought that I got a good giggle on that one.
Okay.
Motivation. It was a great way to end the night too. I liked that to get everybody involved again.
Michaela, what made you giggle?
Honestly, probably the ribs, just the pure size of that model was insane. Kind of gave me a chuckle.
Good. How about you, Leah? Where was your chuckle at?
Yeah, there was a few. I really liked Alyssa's like stick. Like I thought it was really creative. Like I'm not even saying it was funny. I thought it was really cool that you went and like got like sticks, and then sticks and stones don't break my bones. Like that came into my head. So that's why I was chuckling to myself, like that nursery rhyme, like, and I just thought it was ironic. So I thought it was fun. It was a fun model though.
I liked the sticks too.
Yeah.
You even got the power tools out for it. So.
I know, that's crazy.
Gail?
I liked Londa's pictures of her skeletons.
I did too. That broke it up really good. How about you, Allison?
Yeah, I was gonna say the fact that Alyssa used power tools. I thought that was really funny, but it would look great, honestly.
All right. What was your chuckle, Teresa?
I had quite a few of them all day today, but I think it would be Geraldine putting her foot up in the video. Yeah, I think I'll remember that one for a while.
Okay, let's see who else we got here. Alyssa, what was your chuckle?
Mine was definitely the spreading of the toes.
All right. Geraldine, you're hitting good here. How about you, Abby?
When Luke just pulled out a full like leg from under his desk. Just got skeletons and bones around his house. That was really funny.
You never know when you're gonna need it, right?
No, you can always use a hand.
How about you, Jules?
It made me chuckle, but it was also like reassuring when everybody else was mispronouncing all of the words. So
Yeah.
it made me feel not so bad when I asked tabular.
All right, so with the pronunciations, I will still struggle, so that is okay. Geraldine.
Oh, I had so many chuckles. I thank you guys so much for the entertainment. But from the Legos with Teresa at the beginning, I thought that was hilarious. And I was like, I don't think I could have done the foot with Legos, but that was awesome. And I think that she was like, and I don't know where this is. And you were like, well, turn it around. And there it is. So that was good. And then
The look on her face was great.
and I loved Alyssa's sticks. I loved it because I'm collecting sticks all the time from my backyard, and I was like, oh yeah, that would have been a good use. So that that made me laugh. Yeah, the skeleton that I'm honestly jealous that Luke has all these bones around his house. I love my collection of a skeleton too. That was funny. And then that she made this whole rib cage with hot glue that was outrageously awesome. And unfortunately it was really like pixeled, so I couldn't quite see that. So I'm hoping if I go back to review it that I can actually see it as it was, because it was all pixelated with her.
Yeah, there was some of that. Allison, if you want to take a picture of that and then post it.
Okay, I see it better now. Yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's awesome. That is extremely impressive. You guys rock. But yeah, I had lots of laughs from the beginning to the end today. So
Good. Because when you're going through a lot of detail stuff like this, chuckles are important.
Oh, and the Leah's cat ate her Play-Doh. That was very funny. So
To be fair though, she's had like a rough like couple days. I just was telling her she just got spayed. So like the fact that she ate a little Play-Doh, I was like, you gotta live a little. Like
yeah, I mean it's safe for consumption. It's just not. It doesn't.
But
Come
she like spit it out. So she ate like a little bit of it and then she spit the rest of it out. So it was fine, and she was going to the vet the next day. So I'm like, okay, we're cool. But like,
How about you, Londa? What chuckles did you get?
Well, I think you're going to have to keep an eye on Geraldine. We now know that she draws on her feet and stuff. So during tests, you might want to check her hands and her feet, where she's written her notes. So I love the sticks. Overall, it was pretty good. I see everybody's more crafty than I am, which I knew beforehand.
But your fingers moved real cool.
Thank you, YouTube.
Now, am I missing anybody?
I think you got them.
Got them all? Well, congratulations, you all. You should be very proud. And Alyssa, who would have thought your sticks would have been so, so impressive? Oh, Geraldine, I think you won the chuckles.
At least I made that happen today, I guess, because the Play-Doh did not work so well, but
All right. Excellent. Excellent. These will be up and posted for you tomorrow. And when you review this, these two videos, I think you'll really see how much learning and expertise was gained by doing this little activity. And we'll put everything else together on the pain stuff next week. And remember, it's 9 o'clock. And even though it says 11 o'clock on the link. So
9 or 9:30?
9:30, 9:30. Thank you, Londa. It's 9:30. All right, I'm giving everybody a hand. Excellent job. Okay. Bye-bye, everybody.